C71. Tang Xiaorui, who was drinking milk at the side, was feeling the most depressed. He arrogantly thought that he was no longer like his little sister. However, although he had maintained his aloof image as the older brother, why did the conversations of these people always have the suspicion that they were going to forget him? Tang Xiaorui hurriedly pushed a cup of milk in front of her. "Mummy, eat slower." Jik Xiaohan had thought that Tang Yuyu would find any reason to reject him, and he was still waiting to see her make a joke of himself. However, he never expected that Tang Yuyu would actually doubt his outer appearance and character. This damned woman, what right did she have to question him? Further is indeed not as handsome as Uncle Leon, nor as gentle and considerate as Uncle Jack. Uncle Leon is recognized as the most handsome man in our town, and when Uncle Jack goes out in the morning, he will always bring a bunch of roses for the mummy. Tang Xiaonei seemed to have realized this fact in an instant as well. A cloud of smoke-free smoke died down just like that. In the other women, he was simply Prince Charming's choice. He was a male god, but in front of the woman in front of him and his daughter, he had fallen into a divine seat and instantly changed into a different person. This was definitely the most humiliating moment in Jik Xiaohan's life. Even his handsome face paled by several degrees. Forget it. He didn't want to bother with this woman. Hey, isn't it just a rose? As long as he wanted to, he could plant a rose garden every minute. However, he wouldn't do that. Only shallow women would like flowers. Tang Yuyu didn't think that her words and actions had already stepped into Jik Xiaohan's bottom line. After eating a few mouthfuls of bread, she clapped her hands and said to Jik Xiaohan, "I plan to go to work today. I'll leave the two kids to you to take care of later. Their adaptability is strong, and they will definitely like the school you choose for them." "You're really not going with me?" Jik Xiaohan saw that this girl was actually so cold-hearted. The children going to school, wasn't that the most important thing in their lives? Which parent wouldn't go and check out the school environment for their children? She was going to be her class just like that? "No, I believe the children will feel happy if they follow you." Tang Yuyu stood up, and after she said what she wanted to say, she patted his daughter's head and said, "Xiaonei, go and take a good look at the school with Daddy in a while. If you are dissatisfied with anything, remember to mention it to your dad." "Mummy, you can go to work in peace. If someone bullies you, remember to mention this to Dad. I believe Daddy will definitely help you." Tang Xiaonei said with a smile. He did not see any unhappiness on her little face. "No one will bully me," Tang Yuyu muttered. She then patted her son's shoulder and reminded him, "Remember to take care of your sister." "Mummy, don't worry, with me here, no one will dare to bully Xiaonei the fool, as long as she's not too stupid." Tang Xiaorui couldn't help but say a few words to his little sister. Tang Xiaonei immediately roared at Tang Xiaorui in dissatisfaction. "I'm not as stupid as you." Tang Yuyu was already used to the bickering between the two little fellows. In any case, they were arguing, and if she wasn't careful she would make up for it, so she didn't take it to heart. Jik Xiaohan watched the woman walk up to the second floor naturally and unrestrainedly. She must have gone to change her clothes. How could this woman entrust her child to him without worrying about it at all? Even if he loved children, she must not forget that she was a mother. "Daddy, is Mummy's back beautiful?" Tang Xiaorui snickered from the side. Jik Xiaohan was so angry that he could not even eat breakfast. He threw away his knife and fork, and stood up with his tall body. "I still have some things to say to your mummy. You geese take your time, I'll go upstairs to look for her." The two little fellows immediately turned their attention to the delicacies. At this moment, Tang Yuyu was standing in her bedroom, planning to change into a set of professional clothes. When she took off her casual shirt, she turned around to get a white shirt. Suddenly, the bedroom door was forcefully pushed open and a tall figure stood at the doorway. "Ah, you, Jik Xiaohan, you rogue!" Tang Yuyu was shocked. He forgot to cover his chest with something. By the time she reacted, the man's eyes that were as deep as ink had already become much deeper. "I think you should come with me to the school to see what's going on." Jik Xiaohan stared at her white spot for 2 seconds before changing the topic. causing the atmosphere to become less awkward. Tang Yuyu's snow-white face had already turned red from embarrassment and anger. She used her shirt to cover herself tightly and said angrily, "What are you trying to say? Can't you wait for me to change my clothes first? Get out of here right now." Jik Xiao Han did not expect her to actually want to drive him away. His handsome face sank, and his tone became sarcastic. "With just this little bit of strength, I really want to see. If you want me to see, you don't need to hide, since there's nothing to see anyway. Get out of here, or else I'm going to yell." Tang Yuyu felt that this man did not respect him at all. When Jik Xiao Han heard her say that she wanted to shout, his handsome face suddenly flashed with panic, attracting the two little fellows over. He was afraid that he would be killed by his son's gaze. C-72. "I'll give you 2 minutes. I'll wait for you outside the door." While Jik Xiao Han was speaking, his serene and sharp gaze still unwillingly glared at the place she covered. It was a pity that this woman covered herself tightly and did not see anything, which made him a little displeased. Tang Yuyu waited until Jik Xiao Han went out, but he was still worried. He quickly walked over and locked the lock. Jik Xiao Han leaned on the wall outside of the door, feeling extremely depressed, suddenly wanting to find a cigarette. He didn't know if it was because of the wind, but he could vaguely smell a faint fragrance coming from her body. It definitely wasn't that kind of strong artificial perfume. It seemed to be emitting from her body. It was a very enchanting smell. It wasn't a bit boring at all. "Speak, what else do you want to say?" "No matter what you say, the kids won't depend on me if I don't go to school with you today." Tang Yuyu stood in front of him, her two small hands tightly holding onto her handbag, and looked elsewhere. She just didn't want to look at him. Jik Xiao Han frowned. This woman had completely ignored him. Initially, he had wanted to persuade her to come along, but this woman's stubborn attitude made Jik Xiao Han give up on persuading her. "Are you not going to attend all the public events of the children's lives with me?" Jik Xiao Han was really worried. This was what this woman was thinking. It was really annoying. Tang Yuyu's gaze turned over and lightly landed on his dark and handsome face. Her beautiful little mouth raised into a smile. "You're right, that's what I've decided. In any case, I won't let anyone know about my relationship with you in the future." "Are you unaware that you are doing this as an unqualified mother?" "Although the children were taught by you to be very strong, if they don't say anything, they definitely hope for you to become more involved in their group's activities." Jik Xiao Han immediately said righteously and strictly, with sufficient reason to come and teach her a lesson. Tang Yuyu frowned. She had to admit that this man had his own reasons. "But all right, we will take turns to accompany the children, but you have to promise me that our relationship with the children will not be revealed." Tang Yuyu really did not want this matter to be exposed. The children's safety, to her, was above all else. Jik Xiao Han finally understood why this woman was so persistent. Wasn't she trying to get rid of her relationship with him? How important did she really think she was? Did he really want to have something to do with her? He really took himself seriously. Jik Xiao Han didn't even bother to pay attention to her as he turned around, leaving her with a cold back that he couldn't climb. Tang Yuyu shrugged her shoulders disapprovingly. No matter how this man thought of her, she had already decided what kind of life she wanted to live. When Tang Yuyu went downstairs, the two little fellows had already eaten their fill and were playing in the living room. "Mummy, why are you going out?" "Let your dad drive you out." Tang Xiaorui was really considerate. He had thought about it during dinner just now. Thus, he intentionally said it out loud. Jik Xiao Han, who was sitting beside him, raised his gaze a little when he heard his son's words. Tang Yuyu also realized that she didn't even have the ability to move, so she could only turn her head to look at the man. Jik Xiao Han naturally wouldn't be so stingy. Since he was able to bring the three of them back to their home, he had to manage this woman's entire life. "Uncle Yuan, give her a car." Jik Xiao Han ordered Uncle Yuan coldly, his arms crossed in front of his chest. Uncle Yuan found a car key and gave it to Tang Yuyu with a smile. "Miss Tang, take it." Tang Yuyu accepted the car key and smiled at Jik Xiao Han. "Mr. Ji, thank you." Jik Xiao Han turned his face to the side without understanding anything. This woman would only smile at him when she obtained some benefits, What a snobbish person. Before Tang Yuyu left the house, he reluctantly kissed the two little fellows. Previously, when she came back, she had to ask her aunt to take care of them for a few days, and now that she was left with a nervous breakdown by this man, Jik Xiao Han, she finally walked out of the living room and turned around. Seeing the depressed man sitting on the sofa, she felt a sense of relief that she had never felt before. She felt that she was quite heartless. She actually started to enjoy this feeling of freedom after throwing her child to him. Jik Xiao Han squinted his eyes. He could clearly feel that this woman was walking in a brisk manner. Did she think that by giving her children to him, she could enjoy her free life? Uncle Yuan, let's prepare to head out too. Although Jik Xiao Han was dissatisfied with Tang Yuyu, seeing the two little fellows running around in front of him, he was still extremely happy in his heart. Wait for me here. Daddy, go upstairs and change your clothes. Jik Xiao Han instructed the two little fellows before walking upstairs. When he came down, he was already in a suit, as if he had returned to his cold and aloof CEO self. Wow, Daddy is so handsome. Tang Xiaonai already had a sense of aesthetics at her young age. Looking left and right, from top to bottom, she still felt that her father was more handsome than any man. Jik Xiao Han lifted his lips, walked over and hugged his daughter, and said, Xiaonai has good eyes indeed. Tang Yuyu drove the car directly to the lower floor of the Only Idealism office building and parked the car in the car park. First, she reported to the personnel department, then, she went straight to the design department. Her superior was her godmother, Liu Zai. Seeing that she had finally been hired, Liu Zai heaved a sigh of relief for her. C73. Wanru, what's going on? Quarterly let you come to work again? How did he agree? Have you been to see him? Liu Zai didn't know about the matter of Tang Yuyu and Jik Xiao Han having a child. When she first heard that it was Jik Xiao Han who took Tang Yuyu's resume, her heart sank. Tang Yuyu naturally told a small lie to her foster mother. Only Idealism's design department was divided into a few parts. Liu Zai was only in charge of one of the departments. She had around 20 people under her. The moment the few men saw the beauty, they immediately became excited, and nodded their heads. Director Liu, we know how great your standards are. Of course we would work even harder to serve you. Tang Yuyu could be considered as the first beauty, but to be able to sneak into the design department and work for it, all of them were definitely not ordinary people. In terms of self-cultivation and dressing, they were already ahead of other areas of work. Perhaps their physiques and facial features were not necessarily outstanding, but they could still be considered beautiful even though they could dress up and grasp the vanguard of fashion. Tang Yuyu entered the office. Furthermore, their relationship seemed to be very good. Who would not be jealous when seeing this? The reason why Liu Zai had introduced Tang Yuyu as she was single was also because Tang Yuyu did not tell her that when he was studying abroad, he had even given birth to 2 children. In truth, Tang Yuyu had been hiding this matter from them all along, afraid that they would find out that Tang Zru had developed her career very well, that she and her mother were extremely powerful people, and that if they found out that she was not studying abroad and was using the Tang family's tuition to raise her children, her life and theirs would be in chaos. She had protected the secret that she had children, so among the people who knew her, other than her aunt, who knew that she had children, there were now Jik Xiao Han and a few others by his side. As for Jik Xiao Han, she wasn't worried at all. In any case, he had promised her before that he would definitely keep this secret. You just follow Li Fangfang, she just so happens to have a big deal in her hands. Act as her assistant and bring up your design. Chi Zai arranged for Tang Yuyu to train under the hands of an old employee. Alright, Director Liu. In the company, Tang Yuyu did not dare call her mother in front of her subordinates, for fear of getting people to gossip about him. Liu Zai said to Li Fangfang, you are a new person. How can you do anything wrong? Help me give a few pointers. Li Fangfang immediately smiled and said, yeah, Director Liu, you can relax. I have always been very considerate of newbies. Just like that, Tang Yuyu began her work under Li Fangfang's lead. Your name is Tang Yuyu, right? From now on, you can call me Sister Li. You don't look that old. I'm sure I'm 5 or 6 years older than you. Li Fangfang was about to be 30 years old this year. But when Tang Yuyu considered it, She was actually only 21 years old. "All right, Sister Lee," Tang Yuyu immediately shouted with a smile. "All right then. Take a look at these contracts first. They have information on this project's cooperation. See if you can hand over a few works for me to see." Although Li Fangfang was full of smiles, she couldn't help but feel jealous of Tang Yuyu's beauty. That amount of collagen must have been something that she wanted even in her dreams. It was a pity that time was too cruel. Even though she had spent so much effort in maintaining it, she still had the most frightening nightmare of her age. Beautiful things would always make people jealous and envious. However, Tang Yuyu did not realize what this warm-hearted elder sister beside him was thinking at the moment. Her mind was set on her work. During lunchtime, Tang Yuyu went back to his aunt's house. She told her aunt about her decision. Cheng Wanlian was happy for her, but also worried for her. "Wanru, have you really decided to take the child and live with him? He's not going to try to take the baby away from you anymore, is he?" Cheng Wanlian asked in concern. Tang Yuyu bit her chopsticks and ate the food made by his aunt. After thinking for a while, she said confidently, "Aunt, don't worry, I think the children are more sensible. They won't be taken away. As long as you feel that your children are fine, then I am relieved. If you are free in the future, remember to bring your children over for fun. I miss them quite a bit," Cheng Wanlian said with a smile. "All right, Aunt. I need to go to work. I'll come over when I have time. I'll bring the kids over when they're on vacation." Tang Yuyu looked at the time. It was time to go to work. After returning to the company, Tang Yuyu realized that the peaceful office in the morning seemed like it was facing a great enemy, all of them extremely nervous and excited. "Sister Lee, did something happen?" Tang Yuyu sat in front of the desk and could not help but ask the person beside him. Jia Fangfang was using a mirror to fix her makeup, while drawing on her lipstick. She said anxiously, "10 minutes ago I received a notice, saying that Quarterly is coming to the company to check on him." "No way." Tang Yuyu's expression froze. Jik Xiao Han wanted to check? Why did it come so suddenly? Tang Yuyu was still stunned. She heard a few female colleagues talking excitedly. "Oh my god, I'm so happy. It hasn't even been a week and I can already see the Quarterly twice. I'm so lucky." "That's right. Luckily I washed my hair in the morning, otherwise, how would I be able to face Quarterly later?" "Don't be silly. Haven't you heard that the Quarterly likes men?" C-74. Was she spoiled? When Tang Yuyu heard this, his ears pricked up immediately. He leaned over and asked in a gossipy tone, "What are you guys talking about?" "You Su, you are a new person. Do you know who the Quarterly is? When you see him later, don't lose your soul." She lowered her head to draw. The moment Jik Xiao Han walked in, everyone in the office stopped breathing and did not dare to look at this man. It was as if even a single glance at him would suck away their soul. Jik Xiao Han's aloof and unfathomable eyes unwittingly caught sight of the little woman who was holding a brush and drawing randomly. When the whole office was nervous about his arrival, only she, still not taking him seriously. Jik Xiao Han himself didn't know what kind of demon he was under, but when his car passed this building, he was so distracted that he wanted to come up and take a look at her office environment. At this moment, he saw that she was sitting in a cubicle near the window. She was still wearing the same set of black professional suit. Jik Xiao Han acted as though he was taking a few steps forward, and a few higher-ups immediately answered some of his questions. Liu Zai was also trembling with fear, and did not dare to neglect for even a moment as he answered all his questions. In Tang Yuyu's eyes, Jik Xiao Han was a bastard who wanted to steal her child, but in the eyes of everyone here, Jik Xiao Han was their god. Jik Xiao Han leisurely walked to the front of Tang Yuyu's desk. It was unknown which of the scriptures was wrong, but his finger lightly tapped on the surface of her desk. Liu Zai immediately called out to Tang Yuyu, "Tang Yuyu, this is Quarterly." Hearing that, Tang Yuyu stood up immediately and shouted politely, "Hello, Quarterly." Jik Xiao Han intentionally ignored her. With a cold face, he led the group of people and arrogantly left. Looking at the man's cold figure leaving, Tang Yuyu felt goosebumps all over his body. Was this Jik Xiao Han taking the wrong medicine? He had been sitting in his office in the middle of the day, but now he had suddenly come to her office to inspect. Moreover, He had knocked on her desk, whether intentionally or unintentionally. "You're dreaming again?" Tang Yuyu's beautiful little face was filled with disdain. At the same time, all of the surrounding women stared enviously at her. It had to be known that Jixiao Han had only come to the Prometheus patrol unit a few times, and there were practically no one who was able to receive his special care. Earlier, when his finger lightly knocked on Tang Yuyu's desk, everyone felt that he was intentionally trying to attract Tang Yuyu's attention. Although his expression was still as cold as ice when Tang Yuyu stood up to greet him, this was already considered an exceptional favor. Wondering, "Do you know the Quarterly?" Some of the girls beside him immediately started gossiping. Tang Yuyu was shocked. It can't be, these people's eyes were really poisonous. Just from the way Jixiao Han knocked on her desk, they could tell that she and Jixiao Han knew each other. "I don't know them." "Why would you ask me that?" Tang Yuyu answered seriously, acting the part flawlessly. The girls became even more interested. "You and Quarterly don't know each other. Why did the Quarterly only knock on your desk?" "It's like he's reminding you that he's here." "Could it be that the Quarterly has taken a fancy to you?" "You are so beautiful, you know." "This possibility exists." "I feel it too. Quarterly seems to be paying special attention to you." You are really lucky. If you really get involved with Quarterly in the future, don't forget about me." Tang Yuyu did not know whether to laugh or cry. This group of people were getting more and more courteous. No matter what relationship she had with Jixiao Han, it would never happen. Liu Zai followed Jixiao Han and left. When returned, she saw Tang Yuyu being surrounded and asked by a few girls. Her face darkened and he pretended to be strict. "What are you guys doing?" "Stop working." The group of girls panicked and immediately ran back to their seats. Liu Zai walked in front of Tang Yuyu and said, wondering, "Come with me for a moment." Tang Yuyu immediately stood up and followed her mother into the office. Closing the office door, Liu Zai immediately turned around and asked Tang Yuyu anxiously, "Yulong, do you have any more grudges with Quarterly?" Tang Yuyu was stunned and blinked her eyes. "Mother, why do you ask?" "I was worried about you." "You saw that earlier. The Quarterly seemed to treat you differently. The intention was for him to knock your desk." "It's always scary." Liu Zai really treated Tang Yuyu as his goddaughter, and thus, he finally got back to work. Even though this job wasn't really a good high-paying job that would make people jealous, as long as one had enough patience to work for a few years, one would definitely have a future. To Tang Yuyu, who had no background, this was basically an opportunity. Tang Yuyu looked at Liu Zai gratefully, and said softly, "Mother, you might be worrying too much, although I have offended him before. But since he allowed me to come back here to work, I believe that the past grudges have already been resolved, and he will not do anything to me." "Did he not dare to do anything to her?" Tang Yuyu added in his heart. Liu Zai looked at her young and fearless look, and still couldn't stop worrying. He patted her shoulders and sighed, wondering, "It's not that I'm making a fuss about it, I'm really afraid that you'll lose your job. I've already read the script that you gave me previously. You're really talented in design." "Honestly speaking, you helped his previously, and when his inspiration was withering, you selflessly helped us out with your script." C75. "Daddy couldn't manage me." These words of his godmother caused Tang Yuyu's eyes to redden slightly. She said softly, "Godmother, why are you bringing up this?" "You're my godmother, who else should I help?" "It's not like you're asking me to work for you. You've given me quite a bit of money and helped me through this difficult time. I really don't have enough time to thank you. How could I dare to ask you to help me?" "Don't worry, your godmother won't let you lose your job. Go, get busy. Your godmother wants to invite you to dinner tonight. Are you free?" Liu Zai said gently. Tang Yuyu was not afraid of her opponent making things difficult for her. She was just afraid that she would be left idle. Furthermore, she had previously helped Liu Zai design many drafts and was praised by Liu Zai, so she was a little confident in herself. "I've arranged for her to come to the company tomorrow afternoon to talk about specific matters. At noon tomorrow, you will be the one to receive her." This is her information. Tang Yuyu had an introduction of the other party. It was a rather famous female celebrity. After he found some time, Tang Yu called Jik Xiao Han and said that she was going to eat outside at night. The phone rang more than 10 times before it was answered lazily by the man, his voice cold and without warmth. "What is it?" "I'm not going back to dinner tonight. Tell the children." Tang Yu ignored his cold tone, and went straight to the point. "Not coming back? Which man are you looking for again?" When the man heard her words, he was instantly enraged. Moreover, his tone was full of ridicule. Tang Yu hated him more now. Who did he think he was? He was the father of children, not hers. "Who do you think I'm talking to?" "I'm just telling you, I'm not going back to eat tonight. If the children ask, just tell them that I have something on." Tang Yu also replied back to him in his cold tone. "Tang Yu, you can just leave the child behind, right? How can there be an irresponsible mother like you?" When Jik Xiao Han heard that she imitated his tone to provoke him, her voice became colder and angrier. However, Tang Yu snorted. "The children didn't say anything. You don't have to speak so much nonsense. I was just eating outside. You speak as if I wanted to abandon the children. Is it that serious? Also, didn't you just tell them that what they need the most is you? Even if I don't go back to eat at night, the ones I love the most are still them. They can understand that." Jik Xiao Han was left speechless by her words. Actually, the meaning behind his words wasn't that the children would miss her, but that which man was she going to have an affair with again. "That's it. I'm hanging up." Seeing that the other party had stopped talking, Tang Yu did not want to say anything either. Jik Xiao Han's face darkened as he stared at the phone that was forcefully hung up by the lady. It was truly heaven-defying, to actually dare to hang up on him first. One must know, no one dared to be so presumptuous in front of him. Jik Xiao Han also threw his phone onto the table, and suddenly became very angry. He pressed the button on the landline, and his voice was not very good. "Go, send someone to keep an eye on Tang Yu, and see which bastard she'll meet tonight." When Lu King heard his young master's angry voice, he jumped in shock and quickly accepted the assignment. Nightfall. In the entire city, the lights were bright. Jik Xiao Han used to like to meet with his friends to relax and play football and drink after work. But now, he had left his job half an hour earlier than usual, pushing away his good friend's phone invitation and hurrying home. At this moment, the two little guys who had been in school all day were sitting in a row on the sofa, waiting for something. "Big brother, look, it's getting dark. Why isn't Father Mummy back yet? I'm starting to miss them." Tang Xiaonai sighed, and said with some sadness. Tang Xiaorui stared out of the window as he frowned. "Daddy's mummy wants to work. Do you think you can be as free as me? Furthermore, what's there to think about?" After being lectured by his brother for no reason, Tang Xiaonai's mouth was immediately flattened as she tilted her head to the side. "HMPH, I don't want to care about you. I will go to Uncle Yuan to get some cake." "Idiot Xiaonai, I feel that it won't be long before you turn into a little fat pig. Look at you. Your mouth doesn't stop talking all day long." Tang Xiaorui made a cute face at her. "If I want to become a little pig, I'll crush you to death, Humphrey." Tang Xiaonai glared at him unhappily, and said, while baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. Tang Xiaorui instantly began to laugh happily. "You want to crush me to death? If you can't catch me, you'll walk like a tortoise." You, 555, scoundrel brother. You are bullying Xiaonai. Xiaonai wants to report to father. Tang Xiaonai was like an anxious little kitten. She stomped on the ground a few times. Her little face was completely red. Her little mouth was gaping. "Daddy can't control me, idiot," Tang Xiaoru immediately said, full of confidence. However, just as he finished speaking, a tall figure entered the room, followed by a man's low and intimidating voice. "Is that so? You already said that I am your father's land, so how can I not care about you?" Tang Xiaorui did not expect that his father would hear his boasting, so his shoulders shrunk. C-76. Daddy is back. When Tang Xiaonai saw her savior, she immediately ran towards Jik Xiao Han with her short legs. When Jik Xiao Han saw a pink little figure flying in front of him like a gust of wind, he immediately squatted down and opened his arms wide, hugging his daughter tightly. "I've thought of it," the little guy said in a childish voice, looking a little embarrassed. Tang Xiaorui suddenly did not know what to say. "I'm hungry. I'm about to faint from hunger." Daddy came back too slowly. Tang Xiaorui had no way to fight against Jixiao Han, so he used his hunger attack to talk. When Uncle Yuan, who was standing nearby, heard the little young master's complaints, he was so frightened that his legs went limp. He had wanted the two little fellows to go to the table and eat more than once just now. They insisted on waiting for the return of young master and Miss Tang before they were willing to serve. "When you're hungry, go eat." Jixiao Han frowned. "Mummy hasn't come back yet. We have to wait for her to come back and eat together," Tang Xiaorui said with determination. Jixiao Han chuckled. "Don't wait for her. She's eating outside tonight. Let's eat first." Tang Xiaorui's small face froze for a moment, as he blinked his large eyes. "Did another uncle treat Mummy to a meal?" "I knew it. Mummy is so beautiful. There must be a lot of people who like to treat her to a meal." His son's words caused someone's face to darken. His tone was immediately filled with anger. "Xiaorui, is this how your mummy usually teaches you? You clearly know that your mummy is eating with another man, yet you feel happy for her." "Daddy, the mummy has brought us so much trouble." "Of course, I hope that there will be more people who can love her." Tang Xiaonei felt that her brother's words made a lot of sense. Jixiao Han facepalmed. It looks like he had to teach these two little fellows a deep lesson. "Let's eat first. Daddy has something he wants to tell you later." Jixiao Han carried the little fellow and walked towards the dining table. "Daddy, Mummy said to wash my hands before eating." Tang Xiaonei said with her childish voice. Jixiao Han smiled as he looked at his daughter and said, "It's father's carelessness. Let's go and wash my hands." "Little Rui, come here." Jixiao Han was only concerned with carrying his daughter away. When he turned his head, he saw the little fellow on the sofa was still arguing with him. He immediately called out his name. This time, his tone was much more gentle. Only then did Tang Xiaorui unwillingly walk over. Jixiao Han very gently washed and dried the two little hands. Then, the three of them sat down at the dining table. The delicious dinner was served to them. Jixiao Han reached out and picked up a piece of delicious chicken for the two little fellows. "Xiaonei, Xiaorui, eat more." "Daddy, you have to eat more too," Tang Xiaonei said while beaming. When Jixiao Han heard the concern of his daughter, his handsome face became even gentler and more enchanting. Tang Xiaorui bit on the chicken, his black gem-like eyes scratching at Jixiao Han. "Daddy, didn't you just say that you have something to say to us?" "What are you saying?" Jixiao Han chewed on the food elegantly, seeing the two little fellows looking at him curiously. He coughed lightly. "Yes, I do have something important to tell you, about your mummy." "What happened to Mummy?" When Tang Xiaonei heard that this matter concerned the mummy, her small and exquisite face also tensed up. Jixiao Han pondered for a moment, then said, "Do you know how dangerous it is for your mummy to meet different men?" "Dangerous? Is Mummy in danger?" Tang Xiaonei was rather straightforward. When she heard that Mummy was in danger, her little face turned pale. However, Tang Xiaorui was not as innocent as she was, and would not easily show his joy, anger, and sorrow on his face. He only stared at Jixiao Han, and waited for him to finish his words. When Jixiao Han saw his daughter's worried expression, he suddenly regretted it. Should he not have talked to the little fellow about such a heavy topic? "Yes, you guys are too naive, and didn't know that there are actually many dangerous things in this world. The men outside, they invited your mummy for a meal, maybe because they have evil intentions. They want to bully your mummy." Jixiao Han tried his best to be more tactful in order to not scare Liang Xiaobao. "Bullying Mummy, brother, will those uncles beat Mummy?" Tang Xiaonei was a little unable to understand the meaning behind bully. The expression in Jixiao Han's eyes faltered slightly, and he immediately replied, "It's much more serious than the fight." "Then are they going to kill Mummy?" Tang Xiaonei was so scared that she did not want to eat anymore. Her two small hands held onto the ladle tightly as her big crystal-like eyes stared at her father without blinking, waiting for his reply. Jixiao Han was stunned again. He coughed dryly. He was finished. The little fellow's interest was piqued. What was he going to tell them about the real purpose of those men? Even if he were to tell them, the two little fellows might not necessarily understand. Idiot Xiao Nei, you were just trying to scare us. Although Tang Xiaorui was nervous, he discovered that his father's expression was not worried at all. She felt that his father must have just been trying to scare them. I feel that father isn't trying to scare us. Big brother, Mummy is in danger. We need to hurry up and make her come back. Tang Xiaonei was timid. When she heard that the mummy was about to be bullied, she immediately wanted to get the mummy back. Tang Xiaorui frowned his beautiful eyebrows, his small face pondering for a moment, then said to Jik Xiaohan, "Daddy, then quickly send a few people to protect my mummy. You better not let anyone bully her." Jik Xiaohan, the little guy, was quite smart. He actually knew to send someone to protect that woman. C77. HMPH, why should he care about her life or death? Didn't she want to go to dinner herself? Yeah, Daddy, don't you have a lot of bodyguards? Hurry up and make a call to Mummy, and then send your bodyguards over to protect her. Tang Xiaonei also instantly felt that her brother's method was the most effective one. Forget it. This was the end of the conversation. He had to protect the little guy's innocent heart. Jik Xiaohan, in the face of his daughter's pair of innocent eyes, couldn't think of any reason to reject her. Okay, Daddy will call the right away. Jik Xiaohan could only resign to his fate and take out his phone. Although Tang Xiaorui looked like a mature little adult, his little nerves tensed up when he heard that his father was going to call the mummy. Jik Xiaohan really hoped that the woman didn't hear his phone call. Daddy, turn on the hands-free. We need to talk to the mummy. Tang Xiaorui suddenly suggested. Jik Xiaohan looked at his son's intelligent eyes. He suddenly felt powerless. There was nothing he could do. He could only turn on the hands-free and place the phone on the table. Jik Xiaohan thought proudly in his heart. Looks like the woman really did not hear the phone ringing. This was good as well. He didn't want her to think that he was really worried about her. Just as Jik Xiaohan was about to let out a sigh of relief, he heard Tang Yuyu's voice from the other side of the phone. What is it? His voice was calm, but there was also a trace of impatience. Jik Xiaohan's handsome face could not be hung up, and he could only say indifferently, "The children are making a ruckus and want to call you." Mummy, Mummy, come back quickly. Daddy said that those men will bully you. The moment Tang Xiaonei Yiting reached the mummy, he immediately shouted excitedly, "Xiaonei!" Tang Yuyu immediately called out her daughter's name in shock. Tang Xiaonei was afraid that mummy did not hear her cry, so she snatched with her short hand and brought the phone in front of her, continuing, "Mummy, go home quickly, is very worried about you." Xiaonei, Mummy is fine. No one would dare bully Mummy. Don't worry, Mummy will bring you back after eating. Tang Yuyu had to use the gentlest voice to comfort her daughter. She knew that her daughter liked to make a fuss. Tang Xiaoru also asked, "Mummy, are you going to eat with a man or with a woman? There's really no danger, right?" Jik Xiaohan, who was at the side, had already lost control of the situation, his handsome face frozen in shock. Was there a need for these two little fellows to make a fuss over nothing? He had just given them a general idea of the complicated relationship between adults, and now it looked like the end of the world. Mummy is eating with an aunt. Don't worry, I'm still eating, let's not talk for now. Tang Yu started to suspect, why were the two little things suddenly so worried for her safety? Did that bastard say something to them? Mummy, eat your meal in peace. Daddy said that he sent his bodyguards to protect you. At the very end, Tang Xiaonei suddenly said something that made Jik Xiaohan want to faint. All right, hurry up and eat. Let me say a few words to your mummy. Jik Xiaohan felt that if these two little fellows continued to speak, his lofty image would completely disappear. Therefore, he took the phone, stood up and walked towards the living room. "Hey!" He feigned indifference. Humphrey, the woman on the other side of the phone, only left him with a heavy nasal voice before hanging up. Jik Xiaohan's entire being froze. His handsome face was so cold it seemed as if hail was falling. That damnable woman had actually hung up on him. What kind of attitude was this? He had to go further so that the children wouldn't know he had lost face. When he returned to the dining table, The two little fellows were extremely curious as to what topic he and Tang Yu were talking about. "Hurry up and eat. After dinner, I'll accompany you to the movies." Jik Xiao Han could only gently dispel the two little fellows' gulixu. In a restaurant, Tang Yu hid behind the balcony to answer the phone, then returned to the dining table. When Liu Zai saw that she was talking on the phone, he couldn't help but laugh. "You unruly. Did you get a boyfriend?" Tang Yu was startled when she heard it, and quickly shook her head. "Mother, there's nothing else. We're just ordinary friends." "You want to avoid my answering calls from ordinary friends?" "Don't be embarrassed. Godmother is an experienced person. Although you are still young, if you find a good man, you can also try to get along with him." But Liu Zai still felt that she was in love. Only someone who was in love would answer the phone in secret. It was because some small words were not suitable to be spoken in public. Tang Yu didn't know how to explain it to her mother, so she could only hide her smile, wondering, "When are you going to bring me your boyfriend and let me check for you? I can't let you marry someone so easily. He must be a responsible man. Moreover, I must treat him well before I can be at ease." Liu Zai felt that she should be more cautious in handing over her boyfriend. She wanted to personally test it out. Tang Yu immediately said gratefully, "Mother, you've treated me so well. Don't worry, in the future, I will definitely bring it to you so that you can see it." "How long have you been dating?" Liu Zai was also a woman, and every woman's heart was born with a gossipy heart. Tang Yu's face reddened, and she immediately stuttered, "8 years, mother. Don't ask any more. The time is right. I will definitely bring you there to see it." C78. "You're too shy." "All right, I won't worry too much about young people. You geese should take good care of yourselves. Don't get injured." Liu Zai immediately saw Tang Yu's bashful look as the tender look of a woman in her first love, and did not ask any further questions. He is famous for not speaking a single word of kindness. He is also famous for being cold and black-hearted. If you see him in the future, it's better for you to take a detour, and not to clash with him directly. Do you understand? Ling Chen. Liu Zai warned her again and again with good intentions. When Tang Yu heard this, he immediately laughed, and said with a serious tone, "Mother, who do you think I am? No matter how handsome Jik Xiao Han is or how rich he is, it has nothing to do with me. I don't like that kind of cold and detached man. It's as if the whole world owes him money." After dinner, Tang Yu took a taxi back to the company and secretly drove away the luxury car that was worth millions. From the looks of it, she needed Jik Xiao Han to prepare a normal car for her. She did not want to attract attention by driving his 10,000 luxury car. Returning to the villa, it was already past 9 o'clock. After Tang Yu stopped the car, she anxiously entered the living room. The living room was empty. There was no sign of the little guy. "Miss Tang, you're back." When the Uncle Yuan heard the sound of a car, he hurriedly came out to greet her. Tang Yu asked in surprise, "Uncle Yuan, where are the children?" "Young master is bringing them to the second floor's screening room to watch a movie. Do you want to go up to take a look?" "Oh, no. I'll go back to my room and take a bath first." Tang Yu said softly and quickly went upstairs. After Tang Yu took a bath, she changed into a simple set of clothes. Her long hair was coiled at the back of her head and some messy hair fell down, making her look like a few years younger. She looked for the light and found the projection room. From inside, the unique voice from the animated movies could be heard. Tang Yu gently pushed open the door. A pair of beautiful eyes peeked in. In the slightly dim projection room, two little guys with 3D glasses were watching the screen with relish. On the other side, Jik Xiao Han leaned against the back of the chair tiredly. His eyes were half closed. It was unknown whether or not he had fallen asleep. Seeing this somewhat discordant scene, Tang Yu frowned. This man accompanied the children to watch a movie, yet actually had a perfunctory attitude, and always came to denounce her taking care of the children. Could this be considered slapping them in the face? Tang Yu had something to ask him, so she pushed open the door and entered. "Mummy." The little fellow turned its head at the same time, and when it saw her, it immediately cried out in joy. Tang Yu pointed to the screen. "All of you watch a good movie. Mummy has something to say to your father." Jik Xiao Han squinted his eyes slightly. Seeing that this woman had come back so early, He no longer felt so depressed in his heart. "What is it?" Jik Xiao Han's low voice revealed some displeasure and coldness. Tang Yu stared at him with her beautiful eyes. "Come out." Jik Xiao Han's handsome face became even more displeased. What kind of tone did this woman have? He actually dared to be arrogant with him. However, although Jik Xiao Han did not really like the tone of voice Tang Yu was talking to him in, the tall and strong figure still followed her out. Seeing him come out, Tang Yu silently walked forward with large strides. Jik Xiao Han knew what she wanted to say, and also knew that she was purposely moving further away so that the children wouldn't hear what they were about to say. He followed her with heavy steps until he reached the far end of the corridor. He pushed open the door and saw a wide balcony outside. The balcony was covered with expensive trees and flowers, and the lights were simple and elegant. It was a bit dim, but it was a bit more peaceful. Tang Yu carried her two hands in a hurry, and walked to the railing. Hearing the sound of footsteps following behind her, she turned around fiercely, and stared at him with her beautiful eyes, full of anger as she questioned him. "Did you say something to the children that you shouldn't have said?" Jik Xiao Han's serene eyes were slightly sunken as he looked at the girl's questioning eyes. Under the warm light, they were as bright as the stars in the sky, overflowing with radiance. Jik Xiao Han looked at her dazed for a moment, and then he heard the meaning of her question. "What do you think I should say, as your father? Do you have a problem with me teaching my children?" Jik Xiao Han narrowed his eyes slightly, looking completely confident in his attitude. Tang Yu choked. Indeed, she could not find logic in his words. "But the child said on the phone that I was in danger." "What danger could I be in?" "I'm just going out for a meal with a friend." Tang Yu crossed her arms in front of his chest. Her heart was still stuffy, but she felt that this man had taught her child ill. Jik Xiao Han looked at her in different expression, as if she did not take him seriously. Jik Xiao Han suddenly extended his hand and supported himself on the railing by Tang Yu's side. Tang Yu was so frightened that her whole body froze. Her beautiful eyes looked up at the man's cold and handsome face, and she felt embarrassed and angry that she had been ruined. "Go away, don't get so close." Tang Yu almost instinctively wanted to escape from him. This feeling of being trapped by him made her lose control of her mind. C79. When she wanted to twist her waist and move to the side, the man also reached out his other hand lazily. This time, he really did trap her delicate body in his embrace. Jik Xiao Han. Tang Yu saw a hint of arrogance and complacency in the man's eyes, and she immediately turned angry from embarrassment, calling him by his name one word at a time. His tall and straight posture only served to accentuate her petite and delicate appearance. "Woman, I don't believe that you can withstand it." A hand, fast and heavy, slapped his handsome face. The charming voice that made him intentionally lower his voice abruptly stopped. Jik Xiao Han was shocked. With a slap, all of his obsessions disappeared without a trace. Why was this useless in front of this woman? "I'm sorry, I'm afraid your charm hasn't made me lose my mind." After Jik Xiao Han's handsome face was injured, in the next second, the woman mercilessly raised one of her legs, and gave him a jack. In the air, the tragic sound of a chicken breaking into eggs could be heard. Even the noble and elegant Jik Xiao Han, at this moment, had a miserable and painful expression on his handsome face. He involuntarily covered his own lower body, and jumped a few times in order to alleviate the sharp pain. "Tang Yu, do you believe that I won't kill you?" It was the first time in Jik Xiao Han's life that he suffered such a miserable defeat in front of a woman. At this moment, he really had the urge to grab onto her slender neck. When Tang Yu saw the man's handsome face contorted in pain, she became even calmer and more rational. Jik Xiao Han looked at the woman's chin that was slightly raised. That calm and indifferent look of hers made Jik Xiao Han feel defeated. Tang Yu was really not afraid of him. She did not know if she had a child, so she was even more fearless, to the point of being afraid of ghosts, bugs, and cockroaches. After she had become a mother, her child had gotten sick. She drove to the hospital in the middle of the night, carrying 2 kids with her. Then what about it? Of course, Jik Xiao Han wouldn't do anything that would harm his cultivation, but he had to teach this woman a lesson. For the disrespect she had shown him, for the slap he'd received, He wanted some compensation. Ugh. Tang Yu never thought that this man would actually dare to take her lightning hand and shadowless kick head-on. Kiss her. Yes, Jixiao Han endured all of the pain and embarrassment, boldly pressing down on the back of the woman's head, his thin lips punitively sucking on her soft and sweet lips. As expected, it was delicious. Her moist, tender lips, when bitten, were like roses, and still carried the scent of warmth. Tang Yu's first kiss. Oh, that's not right. I don't know if my first kiss from 5 years ago was still there, but according to Tang Yu's clear memories, this was her first kiss. This damn Jixiao Han actually stole her other first time 5 years later. Mummy, Daddy, you are all embarrassed. Shameless. Shameless. Just as Tang Yu's mind was about to go blank and wanted to slash this man 1,000 times over, she heard 2 childish voices ringing beside her ears. Jixiao Han's strong body also tensed up. In that moment of shock, the woman used all her strength to fiercely push him away. Jixiao Han was completely caught off guard, and his tall and sturdy body retreated a few steps before he managed to stand steadily. A pair of eyes that were as deep as the sea seemed to be reflected in a fiery star at this moment. They were complacent but also contained a provocative intent. Tang Yu was so angry that she almost went mad. Such a shameful scene was actually seen by the 2 little fellows. It's all this bastard's fault. How can he forcefully kiss me? Jixiao Han's thin lips slightly hooked up. With his goal achieved, his mood instantly became bright and beautiful. Turning around, he looked at the 2 little fellows standing behind him with a smile. He softly asked, "When did the 2 of you come?" "When you were kissing the mummy, Daddy. You were great." "You finally kissed the mummy?" Tang Xiaonai covered her soft and tender face, and only moved 2 fingers away, revealing half of her big black eyes. She peeked at Jixiao Han. That cute little appearance simply looked like she wanted to make a person's heart cute. On the other side, Tang Xiaorui straightened his face and sighed, "Stupid mummy, you kissed Daddy so quickly. Let me tell you, this won't do. You can't let Daddy kiss you so quickly. If Daddy is someone who likes the new and hates the old, then you'll be in for it." Tang Xiaorui. "Shut up." Tang Yu was so angry that he was about to explode. How could she be willing to let him kiss her? Jixiao Han glared at his son snappily, and said with a serious face, "Xiaorui, is your father such a despicable bastard? Since I have kissed your mummy, I will definitely take responsibility for it." After Tang Yu heard his stupid words, she became even angrier. However, she couldn't curse in front of the 2 little fellows, so she could only endure this grievance for the time being. She asked with an icy cold face, "Did you 2 take a bath yet?" "Daddy helped us wash it." Tang Xiaonai put down her 2 small hands. Her pair of big black eyes blinked at Mummy's angry face, and turned to Tang Xiaorui and said, "Big brother, does Mummy hate being kissed by Dad?" "Why, I really like being kissed by Dad." Tang Xiaorui's face was in deep thought for 2 seconds. He shook his head and said, "Maybe my dad did not brush his teeth. I, Mummy, despise you." Jixiao Han, who was at the side, had a petrified expression. C80. "Daddy, do you have a first love?" Tang Xiaonai nodded her head and replied seriously, "It might be so." "Daddy, the next time you kiss Mummy, remember to brush your teeth. Mummy loves to clean. If you don't brush and kiss her, she will definitely be unhappy." Jixiao Han. "Xiaonai, you are so obedient. You are my treasure indeed." Seeing that her daughter agreed, Jixiao Han's mood immediately flew. Tang Xiaorui, who was at the side, saw all of his father's schemes, and clicked his tongue. "Daddy, I just said that Mummy should not take the initiative. I did not think you would be the one to deliver yourself up to." Jixiao Han was stunned and couldn't help but stare at his son. Tang Xiaorui still had a look of disdain on his face. "Daddy, I'll tell you the truth. Mummy doesn't like men who are too proactive." Tang Xiaorui. "If you say another word, do you believe that I'll let you starve for a day tomorrow?" Tang Yu stood at the side. His entire body tensed up, his voice full of threat. Tang Xiaorui immediately shrunk his head, and said with an expression that he knew he was wrong, "Mummy, you can't starve me to death. I'm currently growing bigger, and have to balance out my nutrition every day. Then why are you still blabbering here? Hurry up and go to sleep. You don't have enough sleep, and you don't even have one. Do you understand? Tang Yu suddenly realized that his son seemed to be very nosy. This illness, when did he start? Although Tang Xiaorui looked bold, he was most afraid of him. With a reprimand from her, he obediently went back to his room to sleep. Tang Xiaonui's beautiful big eyes were also sleepy, her eyelids drooping. Xiaonui, Daddy won't sleep with us tonight. Hug Mummy. Tang Yu bent down and softly consoled his daughter. Tang Xiaonui also felt that the mummy did not seem to like sleeping with her father, so she dared not continue to sleep. Her big eyes looked at Jik Xiaohan pitifully. Daddy, good night. Because of his son's few words, Jik Xiaohan dispelled the idea of sharing a bed with Tang Yu. Did he take the initiative? Where did he take the initiative? This was obviously his bed. Hey, this woman really takes herself seriously. She doesn't like men who take the initiative to post things to others. Well, he would be too cold for her. Tang Yu carried her daughter and turned to leave, leaving Jik Xiaohan alone in the cold wind. Looking at the endless coastline before him, he felt a little frustrated. He didn't know where, but he felt as if his life had been thrown into disarray and his heart would no longer be at peace. Of course, he did not reject such a change. He was now the father of his 2 children, and the responsibility on his shoulders was greater. He liked being disrupted by his 2 children. Of course, other than the Tang Yu who rolled his eyes at her everywhere, if this woman was a little more gentle to him, her days would be even better. Jik Xiaohan held onto the railings, thought about life for a while, then turned around and walked towards his son's door. Since he was someone with a child, how could he sleep alone? He couldn't sleep with his daughter, so he hugged his son and slept in the same good mood. Tang Xiaorui was still rolling on the bed when he suddenly saw the door open. He walked in as if he was slightly dissatisfied. Daddy, you're going to sleep here tonight? You took over 2/3 of my bed yesterday. I almost got out of bed in the morning. Little thing. You even dare to despise me. Jik Xiaohan didn't care whether his son was happy or not. He immediately laid on the bed with his head held high. Tang Xiaorui looked at this man who had arms and legs longer than him, who was countless times taller than him, and felt an inexplicable sense of intimacy rise in his heart. Father was so tall and so handsome. He touched his pink little face. With such a good gene, then he would definitely be a very attractive and handsome guy in the future. He might even be more handsome and likable than father. Why are you staring at me like that? Jik Xiaohan's thin lips unhappily rose as she laughed. Tang Xiaorui immediately crawled over, crossed his short legs, and sat beside Jik Xiaohan, asking him in all seriousness, Daddy, do you still remember what your first love looked like? First love? Jik Xiaohan immediately had a bad premonition. This little brat was just a ghost. He had no choice but to defend himself when conversing with him. What if this little fellow ran over and spoke nonsense in front of that woman? That's right, you must have had your first love, right? Can you tell me? I'm very curious. Tang Xiaorui asked while grinning. What is first love? Can you eat? Jik Xiaohan acted as if he did not know the 2 words, looking extremely serious. Tang Xiaorui, I have come to a conclusion. Daddy is so much more stupid than me, so stupid. Tang Xiaorui evaluated in a huff. Jik Xiaohan couldn't help but pinch his cheeks. It's getting late. Hurry up and sleep. How old are you to be talking about such a mature topic, and let your mummy know about it? This is a topic between men. I'm a little man now. Tang Xiaorui retorted, unconvinced. Yeah, you're a little man now. Jik Xiaohan hugged her son in her embrace and gently patted his head. Time flies so quickly, you and little sister have both grown up. Daddy only found you 2 now. I really want to teleport back and recognize you 2 back when you were just born, then I won't be able to leave anything behind.